Namaskar, and thank you for joining. So, today we are going to discuss a very important practice, the practice of forgiveness. Remember, in our stress management module, we divide the practices into three subgroups: the head, the heart, and the hands. And there are three practices for the head that we say is yoga, meditation, pranayama. Three practices for the heart, we say, which is prayer, forgiveness, and gratitude. And three for the hand, we say are connecting, volunteering, and belonging. So today we're discussing the heart practice of forgiveness. So before you go any further, I want you to know that I am talking purely from the point of view of clinical medicine and biology. I'm not talking from the principle of ethics, morality, and spirituality, because if forgiveness has different connotations. In the spiritual context, for example, it has different connotation. If you are, for example, an Advaitist, Vedantist, then who forgives who, right? And if you are a yogi who is only interested in connecting individual soul to universal soul consciousness, this is forgiveness doesn't exist anywhere. And also, again, if you're bhakta, it's the will of the God, then where is forgiveness? So please don't confuse with that. We are discussing here clinical neurobiological syndrome of unforgiveness that leads to illnesses in the body. And that context being set right, there is also one more context I'll be discussing, and that is that forgiveness does not mean foregoing justice, because forgiveness is for you, okay, to treat your biology. But justice also has to be sought, because if there is a behavior of somebody that is resulting in this state in your mind, and if that is inappropriate, that has been brought to justice for a greater societal good. So please keep that context in mind going forward, okay? So let me share my screen with you. Okay, so this is pretty clear to everybody. So we'll go through what forgiveness is, what it is not, and why it matters for the heart, and why do we recommend this for the management of stress, transformation of mind, to facilitate lifestyle practices so that we can treat coronary artery disease and heal the heart. So that's the paradigm. So why forgiveness in medicine? There's a simple reason for that, and that is that not forgiving and keeping it bolted inside drives the coronary artery disease. It can lead to high blood pressure. It can lead to diabetes. It can lead to depression. And as you know, 30% people that have depression also have heart disease. And unresolved anger and hurt gives you chronic stress. You practice forgiveness and it reduces the internal load. So once again, I emphasize forgiveness is about stress physiology. We're not discussing philosophy of forgiveness here. Okay, so what is the common misunderstanding? A lot of people, you've seen this on YouTube and everywhere, and people recommend all type of practices for forgiveness. Forgiveness, you have to know what it is not. It is not excusing the act. It is not forgetting what happened. It is not weakness. It's not submission. It's also not reconciliation. And it's also not letting somebody go off the hook who has done something wrong. Okay? These are misconceptions. When people think that that is what we recommend in forgiveness, they resist forgiveness. That is not forgiveness. So already we said approval of abuse, denial of harm, avoidance of justice, silence, or passivity is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is not going to change what has happened. It's not going to change the past, but it changes what that past does to your neurobiology, neurohumoral responses, your body's chemistry, and your health. And that's what the focus is. Okay, so once again, let me distinguish between justice and forgiveness. To prevent external harm, you have to seek justice. You cannot be in a relationship where there is constant abuse going on against you and you're not seeking justice to prevent external harm, and you're only practicing forgiveness for taking care of the internal harm. It's not going to work. You have to seek justice. Okay. The other thing is justice is what is left to the court, to the law. So that happens in the court. Forgiveness is happening in your nervous system, in your mind. Justice depends on others. They're lawyers, right? They're family members. They're intermediaries who resolve a dispute. So that's external. But forgiveness only depends on you. It's you and your mind and your heart. Okay. So this is very important. Justice protects your society and forgiveness protects your health. Okay. So why unforgiveness harms your health? So first of all, you have to know three things that happen. And again, those of you who are sharp enough will know each one is related to our head, heart, and hand model. Okay. In the head, if the hurt is unresolved, there's mental replay, rumination. It goes on and on and on. Why did he do it? Why did he do it? And every time you do that, neuroplasticity strengthens that circuit. So the more you replay in the mind, more it comes in the forefront. And then this replaying in the mind and could have, should have, would have been different that goes on in your mind in analysis that adds to the emotional burden in your heart. Okay, so you already know how it is hurting your heart. And then hands, what do? They do retaliation planning. I can do this to him. I can do that to him. All those kinds of plannings that go on. So these three have to stop. Again, as I said, seeking justice does not have to stop. Seeking retribution does not have to stop, but through proper channels. Okay. You have to stop the mental replay in your mind, the emotional burden in your heart, and making hands plan retaliation. That is not good. What happens is that if you do not do that, then the stress response will continue. There'll be sympathetic overactivity, and we'll go through that, how that leads to the biology being harmed. Or the bottom of this is you're not feeling safe internally. Remember, I told you when you feel safe, the amygdala quietens down, your vagal tone goes up, your prefrontal cortex takes over, you're rational, reasoned, and logical in your response. When you feel unsafe, you think that somebody's going to harm you, there's some problem going on, then the amygdala starts firing. The fear, the sympathetic activity goes up, the vagal tone goes down. And remember, we talked about the fog of the fear? The fog of the fear does not let your prefrontal cortex do any of the three things that it does. It cannot reason, it cannot logic, it cannot analyze. Okay, so when amygdala activates, because you have unforgiveness that you're carrying in your mind and it's playing out, and the sympathetic overdrive comes, what happens? The cortisol levels go up. And you know, the greatest driver of the bad biology in the body is elevated cortisol level, which is a direct response to amygdala making you believe that you are under threat. Fear and threat is the single most important driver of cortisol, and safety is the opposite. So when you are not unforgiving and feeling threat, unresolution, retribution, then amygdala is driving cortisol. When you are forgiven in your mind, in your heart, with your hands, then you go to the safety mode. The cortisol comes down, blood pressure comes down, heart rate comes down, inflammation comes down, and heart rate variability improves. And in a threat state, fear state, amygdala state, unforgiveness state, all these go in the opposite direction. Because the heart listens to the mind also listens to the heart. It works both ways. Okay. So it's very important to understand that if you're carrying that burden in your head and heart and hands of unforgiveness, this is the biological price that you're paying. Now, the person doing to your harm is oblivious of this, okay, and is least concerned because your health is your responsibility. All right. So you have to make sure that you create mental safety, calmness, enhanced vagal tone to make sure that the unforgiveness does not alter your biology. Okay, so forgiveness works when you stop mental replay. So that's the head, right? Forgiveness works when you release the emotional charge, the pent up charges in your heart. And it also goes away when you end action. See, hands always rehearsal going on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to file a lawsuit. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a note against him on Google. I'm going to write on social media against him. All these actions that are going on with the hand, right? So this is how it is when you're not practicing forgiveness, you're utilizing your head, heart, and hands for exactly opposite thing. You think by doing that, you're hurting the other person. And you believe naively that if you did that, the abuse might stop, you may get retribution, and maybe you won't, right? Maybe that person is not affected by all this, but you perpetuating these actions in your mind and your heart and your hand are actually hurting your own biology. But when you stop mental replay, when the emotional charge is released, and you stop rehearsing it in your mind, the nervous system then comes to the safety mode. So forgiveness is nervous system closing the file. You've opened up a file, right? A file of unforgiveness, and forgiveness is close the file. Okay. Why forced forgiveness fails? Saying I forgive without going through the process that I said is basically suppression. You cannot suppress it. The suppressed emotions are actually more harmful than expressed emotions. It's better to express your emotions, cry out, and offload than to suppress them by I'm doing some special practice on forgiveness. I forgive everybody in this world. True, when you see all these videos that come from highly evolved spiritual masters of any spiritual path, this forgiveness that they are talking about is what they have acquired after realizing God. So they're highly evolved souls. That is not us. We are humans. We are interacting at human social level. We have not reached that state of mind. So don't try to practice the things that those people practice or recommend because they have reached such a high level that we are not there. So all you're practicing is not through the compassion and the kindness and the love that they have in their heart. You're practicing it purely by suppression. If I suppress this emotion, I'll be all right. And you won't. You, the emotion will be suppressed outwardly, will not see that, but your BP will spike up and down. Your anxiety will increase, your depression will increase. And this is going to come as bodily symptoms, somatic symptoms, aching, paining, neck pain, chest pain, back pain, abdominal pain, nausea, poor appetite, stomach bloating, indigestion, constipation, all these things, the psychosomatic manifestations of stress will appear. So forgiveness cannot be forced, right? It cannot be suppressed. It has to emerge from within. So again, how does it emerge? As I said earlier, there are three stress loops going on in your mind that prevents forgiveness from emerging. The head has to stop mental replay, the heart has to offload emotional loads, and the hands have to avoid this impulse to act or attribution or planning. Okay? And each needs a different solution. Let's say head stopping replay, right? Head can stop the replay, it can prevent repetition, and can also weaken the stress memory. So, simple thing right now, take one long exhale and tell yourself, I don't need to replay in this mind, in my mind right now. Okay? That's all you're repeating. I don't need to replay this in my mind. Now, if you do that with long exhalations, remember I've been emphasizing this, long exhalation is the single most important way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. When the parasympathetic nervous system activates and the vagal tone goes up, what does amygdala do? It senses safety. When it senses safety, what does it do? It lowers the cortisol, lowers the blood pressure, lowers the heart rate, lowers the respiratory rate, increases the heart rate variability, and the heart starts improving. So, all you're doing by this head practice is you are reshaping. You are reshaping your thought pattern from repeating that loop, ruminating loop of why this, why me, why she, why this, why me, why he, you're reshaping it into, okay, I can and I will put a stop to this in my mind. But remember, putting a stop in the mind does not mean that you will not seek justice. You will seek justice through appropriate channels as is socially and legally, ethically and morally acceptable. That part you don't forego. What you forego is your mind from playing it over and over and over in your mind. So please be careful wherever I'm emphasizing these things, they have to be done exactly that way. Otherwise, you'll misunderstand it. Heart is where you really store all the emotions, good or bad. Okay? So, what does heart do? Feel sensation, allows emotional completion, releases stored stress. Okay. When the story is not playing, whatever emotional load is there gradually goes on decreasing. Okay. So heart gives you the release, long exhale once again, safety mode, and you say it's safe to let this move. Again, let this move does not mean that you have forgiven the person. So the act is not central to this practice. The one that caused the harm is not central to this practice. You forgiving is not central to the practice. What is central to the practice is in the midst of all that is happening, you feeling safe in your mind and you releasing the emotions from your heart. So that does the second thing. So the first thing, head does the reshaping and the heart does release of emotions. Hands, they prevent retaliation. Now, the moment your mind feels safe, okay, then the stress load on the heart, emotional load goes down, then your impulse, your reactive mind, which is constantly itching the hands to do this, do that, do that, do that, all that we talked about, that ends. So action impulse hands. This also helps to stop rumination. Okay. And simple practice is don't clench your feet in as if you're going to take a revenge from somebody. Open your palms and you make a clear choice. I want peace over replay. Okay. So what it does is it takes away the retaliation avoidance. And once again, what I mean by retaliation avoidance is the retaliation that is going on and on and on and on in your mind. You're still going to seek justice through the appropriate channel, but you're going to let the social, moral, ethical, legal channels to resolve this thing for you. You have to find safety by moving away from if it is an ongoing thing that is causing problem. And at the same time, telling your mind, I'm not going to replay, telling your heart, I'm going to release all that I hold there, and telling your hands, I am not planning retaliation. These three things do exactly these three things in the mind that I told you. They suppress your sympathetic overdrive. They increase your parasympathetic vagal tone. They tell the amygdala, now you're safe. You're safe and sane. You're making the right decision. And the mind, prefrontal cortex likes it. Yes, rationally, it makes sense. I can reason it out. This is a strategy. I need to look after my health and protect myself at the same time. And this is the right strategy. So, putting it all together, replay in the head has to be paused. The hurt in the heart has to be released, and the reaction in the hand has to be stopped. So this is how the resolution follows. And what happens is the forgiveness happens naturally. You don't sit there and forgive the event. You don't sit there and forgive the offender. And you don't sit there and forgive yourself. You reshape your mind, you release your emotions, and you move away from the retaliation so that your mind senses that you're safe. When the mind senses you're safe, then all these biological effects that I said earlier, they tame down, they come down. When they come down, the healing of the heart happens. So again, you can do this daily practice, 60 seconds. The practice is about pause, release, rest. Exhale, pause, hand on the chest, release, open hands. I will not do any reaction. So basically, you're telling your heart, head, pause. I can live without this playing in my mind. You can put your hands on your chest and say, this has caused a lot of harm. This emotional burden is not good for my health. I have to offload it. And tell the hands, look, don't keep planning and planning and planning. Do the right thing and let the justice prevail. Again, as I said, no naming. In this whole practice, you're not going to bring in the abuser or whoever has done harm to you. And there's no analysis of the episode. You're not going to sit and say, why did he do this? This should have happened this way. People don't do this. No, that is all analysis. And also, you're not confronting that person physically or mentally in your head. So there's no naming, no analysis, no confrontation. And also, please, no self flagellation that, oh, I am a better ethical, emotional, moral human being, and therefore I should be able to forgive. And if I'm not able to forgive, the fault is mine. No, the fault is not yours. Okay? So don't blame yourself, don't belittle yourself, don't self flagellate. Okay? Have self compassion. Bad things happen to good people. And sometimes bad people do bad things, and sometimes good people do bad things. Okay? We don't understand their intentions. We don't know why they're doing. My job is to protect myself from the harm that is going to come to my biology by aligning my head and heart and hands in the right direction. At the same time, I have a societal responsibility that if that person has that kind of behavior, I hope that it does not get perpetuated in the society and harm other people, and therefore seeking justice is absolutely appropriate. Okay, so what happens? Regular forgiveness practice will lower your blood pressure, will lower your heart rate, improve your heart rate variability that protects your heart, reduce inflammation in the body that results in all the cardiometabolic renal effects of improving your fatty liver, increasing your obesity, improving your blood pressure, improving your cholesterol, improving your diabetes and your prediabetes. And they're also There are some psychological benefits. Your sleep improves, you feel more rested, you feel more calm. And when you have this calmness in your mind, in the safety mode, only then there is a better adherence to lifestyle and medications that are prescribed for cardiology. If the mind is racing, if the head is spinning, and the heart is shrinking, and the hands are closed, remember, you cannot adhere to a right lifestyle because your whole thinking is clouded now, right? You are in a sympathetic overdrive, fog of the fear mode, and you don't take rational decisions. So therefore, forgiveness is very important for you to transform your mind. And when you transform your mind to safety mode and calmness, then lifestyle transforms. And that is why we have kept this as a cardinal practice and a heart practices for lifestyle transformation to improve your heart health. And that is how the chronic threat state ends and the safety begins. Okay. Once again, forgiveness and justice can coexist. Seek justice, go to court, protect yourself, self boundaries. All this you have to do and still practice forgiveness. And finally, because outwardly you're seeking justice, inwardly you're practicing forgiveness. So I have to be careful. The two cannot go on continuously together. If the threat to you or the abuse is going on, you have to pause forgiveness for that period of time. You have to make sure that the appropriate mechanism is set in place to make sure that this does not keep on going. So pause forgiveness if the abuse is ongoing and you have not established safety. You're still in a phase of acute trauma. You have to come out of it. Seek, even if that means seeking counseling, seek counsel. Okay. If you have severe depression, severe anxiety about all these things, you can't practice forgiveness. You have to seek professional help for a counselor. You have to seek a psychologist if you have deep anxiety. And you have to see a psychiatrist if you have severe untreated depression. Okay. Before you go towards practicing forgiveness. So for that duration that all this is going on, you have to pause it. And as I said, don't force forgiveness. It'll self-manifest once the practices are practiced. So again, let me summarize. Forgiveness that we talked about is biological, not moral. Forgiveness is to prevent internal harm. It does not cancel out justice. That is still your right, and you should seek it. It works through regulation, regulation of a neurobiology, chemistry, your prefrontal cortex, your amygdala, and your vagal tone, not through willpower. It is not motivation, willpower, forcing, those kind of things. And it only happens when the head, heart, and hands close all stress loops. So don't replay it, don't carry it, don't act it out. Forgiveness happens and the heart heals. Thank you.